Hello and a very good evening to you. Welcome to News First Primetime News. I am Shahin Durampati.
And I am Dasniya Pada. Let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
High Commissioner of the UNHRC submits a report on Sri Lanka. Who is the next presidential candidate?
එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයට නායකත්වය දෙන්න පුළුවන් අලුත් නායකයෙකුගේ අවශ්‍යතාවය අපිට අද ඇති වෙලා තිබෙනවා.
බලමු. දැන් කූට්ටම අනනවනේ. කූට්ටම අනනකොට කොලේ ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහනේ. කූට්ටම කැපුවම කොලේ ඉල්ලන්නේ. කූට්ටම කපනකම් ඉමු.
The CEB says the Public Utilities Commission should be held responsible for the delays in implementing the long-term power generation plan. 2 people killed in an accident in Kegol.
The High Commissioner of the Office of Human Rights today presented her report on reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka. She presented the report at today's council session in Geneva.
The High Commissioner today presented her report on the progress of Sri Lanka in the resolution presented by the United States with Sri Lanka's co-sponsorship on the 1st of October 2015.
I welcome the operationalization of the Office of Missing Persons, OMP, following initial delays. The OMP plans to undertake the complex task of tracing the whereabouts of victims in a sensitive, thorough and objective manner, addressing the difficult situation of the victims' families. I commend the establishment of the Office for Reparations and I look forward to the swift appointment of its commissioners. However, implementation of Resolution 30/1 needs to be more consistent, comprehensive and accelerated. Today, my office encourages the government to implement a detailed and comprehensive strategy for the transitional process with a fixed timeline. The recent appointment to a senior position in the Sri Lankan Army of Major General Chavendra Silva, implicated in alleged serious violations of international humanitarian and human rights law, is a worrying development. There has been minimal progress on accountability. My report details the steps taken over a lengthy period to address several emblematic cases and the lack of progress in setting up a special judicial mechanism to deal with the worst crimes committed during the 2009 conflict. Continuing impunity risk fueling communal or inter-ethnic violence and instability. I'm deeply concerned about the calls to reinstate the application of the death penalty after more than 40 years of moratorium.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs Tilak Marapana also presented Sri Lanka's response to the contents of the report at today's council session.
As for the mass graves in Mana, referred to in para 23 of the High Commissioner's report, despite the test results obtained from a USA laboratory revealing that the said skeletal remains date back to 1499 to 1719 AD, a period when Sri Lanka was largely under European colonial rule, the report presupposes other mass graves might be expected to be found in the future. An assumption of this nature in a public report on a matter of this magnitude and seriousness, I may say, will not be acceptable and may even cast a doubt as regards the other assertions that are contained in the report. In referring to para 68C of the OHCHR report, which calls for legislation establishing a hybrid court, I wish to make it clear that our position on this matter is as follows. The government of Sri Lanka at the highest political levels has both publicly and in discussions with the present and former High Commissioners for Human Rights and other interlocutors explained the constitutional and legal challenges that preclude it from including non-citizens in a judicial process. It has explained that if non-citizen judges are to be appointed in such a process, it will not be possible without an amendment to the Constitution by 2/3 of the members of Parliament voting in favour and also the approval of the people at a referendum. Madam High Commissioner, at a time the world is confronted with increasing acts of terrorism and violent extremism, as I stated before this Council last year, the action by the Sri Lankan security forces during the conflict was against a group designated as a terrorist organization by many countries and not against any community. Further, it must be asserted that there are no proven allegations against individuals on war crimes or crimes against humanity in the OISL report of 2015. or in any subsequent official document. It is therefore an injustice to deprive any serving or retired officer of the Sri Lankan security forces or the police of their rights.
Meanwhile, a number of delegates from member countries and organizations also expressed their views.
The European Union is concerned about the continuing reports of harassment or surveillance of human rights defenders and of victims of human rights violations. Intimidation of victims and activists is not compatible with the reconciliation agenda. The European Union encourages the government of Sri Lanka to adopt a time-bound implementation strategy. We welcome that this is reflected in the resolution.
And we're disappointed that more progress has not been made. In particular, we encourage the government to establish the full range of transitional justice mechanisms envisaged in Resolution 30/1, deliver meaningful devolution through constitutional reform, replace the Prevention of Terrorism Act with human rights compliant legislation, and return all remaining military-held private land.
We appreciate the sustained cooperation extended by Sri Lanka to the OHCHR. As Sri Lanka's closest neighbour, India cannot remain untouched by developments there. India has always supported efforts to preserve Sri Lanka's character as a multi-ethnic, multilingual and multi-religious society that accommodates aspirations of all sections of society, including the Sri Lankan Tamil community, for a life of equality, justice, peace and dignity in a unified Sri Lanka.
We also note with concern that virtually no progress has been made in investigating or prosecuting domestically the large number of allegations of war crimes or crimes against humanity collected by OHCHR in its investigation, and particularly those relating to military operations at the end of the war, and call upon Sri Lanka to create a special judicial mechanism for this purpose. We believe that the lack of progress and evidence of backsliding shows that the situation of human rights in Sri Lanka should remain firmly on the agenda of the Human Rights Council, and we urge the government of Sri Lanka to fully and without undue delay implement all recommendations made in the present and previous reports of the High Commissioner.
4 years after the adoption of Resolution 30/1, there has been virtually no progress towards investigating or prosecuting atrocity crimes in Sri Lanka, and very little to no progress on implementation of other commitments under the resolution. Instead, the Sri Lankan government rejects any form of hybrid court. Sri Lanka's domestic legal system is plagued with systemic obstacles to justice, including the politicization of the Attorney General's Department, a judiciary that is deferential to the military, and lack of protections for witnesses.
Further, the OHCHR's oral briefing on Sri Lanka in the 37th session in March 2018 stated that the government was engaging with the UNHRC merely as a box-ticking exercise and had done nothing in implementing its commitment towards accountability. According to OHCHR, called on member states to explore other avenues, including universal jurisdiction, that could foster criminal accountability, which this report reiterates. Would the High Commissioner agree, at least now that it is 10 years since the end of the war, that the only possibility of the Tamil victims seeing criminal justice is by Sri Lanka being referred to the ICC or by the setting up of an ad hoc international criminal tribunal?
And up next is our special investigative segment Action TV, where we look into the recent breakdown of the Norochule coal power plant, which caused multiple outages across the country. The Ceylon Electricity Board officially announced today that the second generator at the Norochule power plant, which malfunctioned due to a technical failure on Monday, has been repaired and restored. The malfunction resulted in the loss of approximately 300 megawatts of power to the national grid and caused power outages in several areas across the country. The construction of the Norochule power plant was completed during the end of 2014 and required a total investment of $1.45 billion. Ever since, consumers have been inconvenienced on multiple occasions after the power generators of Norochule coal power plant malfunctioned. To date, it is not the CEB but the general public who are repaying the debt obtained for the construction of this power plant.
So then, Norochule Sarnang Lacham Mitra team. Pacific name. Adishi Avastar name.
I agree with you. We do have several shortcomings. These shortcomings cannot be addressed immediately. It has only been a month since Minister Ravi Karunayaka was appointed to this ministry. Such shortcomings cannot be addressed within a month. The power generation plan from 2015 to 2034 was only approved until 2020. The plan starting from 2017 was only approved after a year. There are such practical issues. No, the CEB has greater responsibilities. We strive to fulfill the needs of our consumers. Even though the acting chairman of the CEB says the board works hard to fulfill the needs of their customers, the CEB is yet to implement the long-term power generation plan that has already obtained cabinet approval. Statistics reveal that the delay in implementing the long-term power generation plan has resulted in a loss of more than 50 billion rupees to Sri Lanka. Await more details tomorrow.
The MedCity 7 Kidney Patients Relief Service, Welfare and Research Centre was vested with the public this morning under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena.
The centre was built at a cost of 437 million rupees, utilising the funds of the National Kidney Fund, which was established by President Maithripala Sirisena. The medical centre is equipped with several facilities including accommodation for kidney patients and facilities for medical research. The centre was constructed with the assistance of the Sri Lanka Army. The event was attended by several parliamentarians including Minister of Health Dr. Rajitha Senaratne, Minister of Women and Child Affairs Chandrani Bandara and MP Duminda Disanayake.
When I contested for the presidential election in 2015 as the common candidate, I made a statement that posters, banners and cutouts should not be used. We must protect our environment. We must stop using polythene. The money we spend on such items should instead be donated to the National Kidney Fund. The public has donated hundreds of millions to the National Kidney Fund. After I took over as president, I used my personal bank account to establish this fund. I am very happy that I was able to open 2 large buildings without even using a cent from state funds.
Tokens of appreciation were presented to officers and sponsors who assisted in constructing the medical facility.
After President Maithripala Sirisena stated that Singapore needs to be clear on its stance regarding extraditing Arjuna Mahendran, it was reported today that Singaporean media has also questioned its government.
A Singaporean media report read that it appears that Singapore is currently unwilling to hand over their citizen to face these charges in a foreign court. According to the AFP, Singapore has rejected the claims by saying Colombo failed to provide documents to support its extradition request. The AFP quotes a Singaporean government official as saying Sri Lanka's request to return Mahendran, quote, lacked certain information required under Singapore's extradition laws, unquote, and the city-state has requested Colombo to provide them. The people of Sri Lanka will undoubtedly be appreciative of the interest displayed by the people of Singapore and some media who appear to have understood the anxiety that has engulfed Sri Lanka in terms of the largest financial scam ever perpetrated on its public. The visionary and hallowed principles of the founding father of Singapore, the legendary statesman Lee Kuan Yew, appear to have been left by the wayside as demonstrated by the unusual Singaporean government's intransigence when it comes to assisting a regional neighbour in its hour of need. Singapore and Sri Lanka share common ground on their membership of the Commonwealth. Commonwealth treaties contain provisions for the extradition of persons wanted by any Commonwealth nation, especially for matters of a purely fiscal nature. The London scheme reads, an extradition offence is an offence which is punishable in the requesting and requested country by imprisonment for 2 years or a greater penalty. Simultaneous to the apparent unsympathetic Singaporean response to President Maithripala Sirisena's plea for accountability, in Sri Lanka, the forensic audit envisaged by the Presidential Commission into the bond scam continues to suffer delays. The Daily Mirror reports that Cabinet has called for a report within 3 months on the steps taken to select international experts for a forensic audit on the central bank bond scam. In the meantime, 15 months after the publication of the bond scam, the forensic audit appears not to have started as yet. Newsfirst can reveal that out of 6 forensic audits advertised, award letters for 4 audits have already been sent out. The award letter for the 5th forensic audit is expected to be sent out imminently. However, the award for the 6th forensic audit has been delayed. Highly placed sources requesting anonymity revealed that the process to award the 6th audit will need to be redone.
In 2018, the Central Bank Governor, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, said that 4 forensic audits will take place. We asked him where these forensic audits are. If the forensic audits are not done during his tenure, this will be an invasion of his responsibilities as the Governor of the Central Bank. We are already aware that Ranil Wickremesinghe, Mangala Samaraweera and the present government has no interest to conduct foreign audits and learn the truth of the Central Bank bond scam.
Staying on the subject of extradition, British police announced earlier today that billionaire jeweller Nirav Modi had been arrested in London on behalf of the Indian authorities. Nirav Modi is an Indian-Belgian citizen wanted by Indian police as well as the Interpol for several cases pertaining to fraud.
India had asked Britain in August to extradite Modi, one of the main suspects charged in the $2 billion loan fraud at state-run Punjab National Bank, India's biggest banking fraud. Police said Modi had been arrested in central London yesterday and was due to appear at London's Westminster Magistrates Court today. Interpol had issued a red notice for the arrest of the celebrated diamond jeweller. PNB, India's second-largest state-run bank, in 2018 said that 2 jewellery groups headed by Modi and his uncle Mehul Choksi had defrauded it by raising credit from other Indian banks using illegal guarantees issued by rogue PNB staff. Modi and Choksi, who have both denied wrongdoing, left India before the details of the fraud became public. In December, a British court agreed that another high-profile Indian businessman, aviation tycoon Vijay Mallya, could be extradited to his homeland to face fraud charges.
Several former organizers of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party convened a media briefing in Colombo today. A main focus point at this media briefing was the next presidential candidate.
Gotabaya is a stronger candidate compared to Maitri. Let's do an analysis on the status quo. It is evident that Maitri or anyone else from the SLFP has to contest against the Rajapaksas in the upcoming election. We urge them to do so.
The Rajapaksa family has chosen Gotabaya Rajapaksa as the presidential candidate. Where is SP Dissanayake Susil Premajayanta? Where is Dilan? They have abandoned President Maithripala. Mahinda paved his way to become Prime Minister by promising President Maithripala that he will be the next presidential candidate. In the end, he became the Prime Minister and then the opposition leader and hoodwinked the party and the party leaders. Gotabaya can contest from the SLFP and win by himself if he wants.
මෛත්‍රී ජනාධිපතිතුමා හම්බුනේ කීපාරක් හම්බුණාද කියලා අහන්න. අපිට අවශ්‍ය නැහැ හම්බෙන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. මොකටද ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඔබතුමාලා මග අරිනවා නම් ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරනවා නම් මොකටද ඔය මතේ? ගහලා ජනාධිපතිතුමා නෙමෙයි ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ.
The members of the opposition spoke of the presidential candidate.
We do not expect to give the UNP the opportunity to appoint another president. Even though our political parties act independently, we are of the stance that the opposition must be united. We are not concerned as to who will be the next presidential candidate. All we require is an effective action plan. However, we only need one good presidential candidate and not 2. Even the backbench leaders of the UNP can contest with Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Ranil Wickremesinghe is the leader of the UNP and Sajith Premadasa is the deputy leader of the UNP. There should be one presidential candidate from the UNP and this will not change.
ජනාධිපතිවරයා අපේක්ෂකයෙක් විය යුතුයි. ඒක වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
I do not work with the Rajapaksa family. Mahinda Rajapaksa's appointment as the Prime Minister was when I last worked with him. The very next day when they joined the Pohottu and left us stranded in Parliament, the President is still my leader. So let's wait and see.
තාම ජනාධිපතිතුමා මගේ නායකයා. එතුමත් ගේමක් ගහගෙන යනවා. බලමු. දැන් ඉතින් කූට්ටම අනනවනේ. කූට්ටම අනනකොට කොලේ ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහනේ.
There will be a presidential election during the end of this year. We will announce a presidential candidate from the UNP. He will succeed in the presidential election. The UNP has Ranil Wickremesinghe, Sajith Premadasa as well as Karu Jayasuriya.
අපේ නියෝජ්‍ය නායක සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමා ඉන්නවා අපේ කතානායකතුමා අපේ කරු ජයසූරිය මැතිතුමා අපේ පක්ෂයේ සමාජිකයෙක් එතුමා ඉන්නවා.
Speaker Karu Jayasuriya attended the religious events at the Kandy Katharagama Devalaya today.
The renovated Wahal Khada of the Kandy Katharagama Devalaya was declared open by the Speaker today.
We have to come together to create unity among those in Parliament and increase efficiency within us. We can then unite the people of this country and establish a law-abiding society.
Later, the Speaker called on the Mahanayaka of the Askari chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Jnana Ratna Thero, and obtained blessings. Speaker Jayasuriya, who then arrived at the Manikinna Vidyasara Pirivan in Kandy, obtained blessings from the Mahanayaka of the Sri Lanka Ramanya sect, Most Venerable Pemasiri Thero.
A religious event to felicitate the benefactors of the Sri Gautama Viharaya in Narahimpeta was held today with the participation of former Defence Secretary Gotabe Rajapaksa.
Minister Navin Dissanayake and former Army Commander General Daya Ratnayake also attended the event. I cannot speak for long. I am sure that the future presidential candidate has several events to attend. This country provides the opportunity for any leader to be created. That is decided by the people. We are aware of that. When speaking about the presidential candidate, the suitable place will be provided to the suitable person. That cannot be stopped by anyone. I thank my friend Minister Navin Dissanayake for making me a presidential candidate. I hope and pray that you will be able to achieve what your father could not achieve. But I am certain that your father-in-law will be a future presidential candidate. Gotabe Rajapaksa also spoke to the journalists. It is going well. It is going forward based on the principles of the SLPP. Why are the people requesting that I run for president? They see the qualities that they require in me. They appreciate me for the leadership that I provided more than the leadership I provided during the war. Especially from the steps that were taken to return the lives of the people living in the north and east to normalcy, to rehabilitating the LTT members, we have made sure that even the elections were held in the northern province. That was the step taken to ensure their democratic right. As the Secretary of the Ministry of Urban Development, steps were taken regarding the city of Colombo. People saw my ability through the actions I took to make Colombo the fastest developing nation in Asia.
මගේ වැඩ කිරීමේ තිබෙන හැකියාව අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මට
I think so, because everyone understands the situation. Just because they are referred to as the minority communities, I do not think they will fail to understand the situation as to what is happening. They also need to come out of that situation, and I think that I am the answer.
The 182nd model village constructed under the Samata 7 housing program was vested with the public under the auspices of Deputy Leader of the United National Party, Minister Sajith Premadasa.
The model village is located in Valalavita Hevessa area in the Kalutara district. It has been named after former Minister Meril Karyavasam and consists of 22 houses. The distribution of spectacles, land deeds and the provision of housing loans to low-income earning families took place in line with this event. Minister Sajith Premadasa helps and supports us despite being a political representative from the Hambantota electoral district. It is unfortunate to note that there are several other leaders in our district who are only concerned about building up their own portfolio. We are helpless. There should be a program in place where every UNP politician will work together. Sajith Premadasa is the preference of every citizen of Sri Lanka. We need a new leader who is equipped with a fresh vision and strategy and who will steer the UNP forward. I believe that we can make this change within the next few months.
ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී ගැහුවනේ හොඳ ලස්සන පෝස්ට් එකක් මේ කවුද මොකද කරන්නේ?
You can wait and see what our political opponents will do. Every time you get trapped, we will build a ladder to save you. The public will be the temporary owners of this ladder.
එක පරම්පරාවෙන් පරම්පරාවට සින්නක් කරොප්පුවෙක් පාවා දෙන ක්‍රමවේදයකට ඔබලා අයිතිද? කැමතිද? ඒ අයිතිය ඔබලාගේ අයිතියද?
Submission of complaints to the Presidential Commission that was appointed to investigate into state institutions over the past 4 years ended yesterday.
President Maithripala Sirisena appointed this commission to investigate into allegations of fraud and corruption in state institutions that may have taken place between the 15th of January 2015 to the 31st of December 2018. The deadline for the submission of complaints ended at 5 p.m. last evening. 1,142 complaints have been received thus far. A senior spokesperson of the commission stated that 48 of the complaints received have been submitted to the Special Police Unit for preliminary investigations. A statement issued by the Presidential Investigations Commission reveals institutions under the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Agriculture, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Sri Lankan Airlines have been considered as the main state institutions in which large-scale fraud had taken place. The statement adds that investigations into these complaints reveal that senior officers of the Colombo Municipal Council have engaged in corrupt activities on a regular basis. The Commission has also received a complaint regarding a large-scale fraud that had taken place during the 150th anniversary celebrations of the Colombo Municipal Council. This complaint is already under preliminary investigations. Among the complaints received are complaints against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, several ministers of the present government including Ministers Malik Samaravikrama, Kabir Hashim, Akila Viraj Karyavasam and Lakshman Kiriyalla, and advisor to the Prime Minister R. Bhaskara. Meanwhile, the Surakum Sri Lanka organization submitted another complaint to the Presidential Commission yesterday, alleging that Minister Rishad Badiuddin had misappropriated funds worth 4,500 million rupees via Satosa. We will continue to complain and report on corrupt activities that take place in our country. We hope that investigations will take place properly during the next 2 or 3 months. This country has become a poverty-stricken nation due to the damage caused by ministers. With regard to the Bond Commission report, we witnessed yesterday that even the President is confused in this regard. We opposed and complained against the Singapore Free Trade Agreement. However, even after all of this, no action has been taken against Minister Malik Samaravikrama. We highlight such matters to inform the public. However, we believe that after this Presidential Commission concludes in 6 months, the fate of this matter will be similar to that of the Singapore Free Trade Agreement.
2 people died in a tragic accident which took place this afternoon in Karadupana Mologoda area in Kegol.
The accident occurred when a car travelling towards Kandy from Colombo collided with a bus that was plying in the opposite direction. Thereafter, the bus had also collided with a van that was travelling behind the car. The accident resulted in the death of the driver of the car and his wife. The 61 and 54-year-old deceased were residents of Bemulla. Our correspondent said that an individual who was travelling in the car and 6 others who were travelling in the van were admitted to the Kegol hospital. The police said the driver of the SLTB bus has been taken into custody.
An event to mark the 90th birthday of founding president of Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, P.P. Devraj, in Colombo today.
The event was organized by the Pathfinder Foundation.
As Albert Einstein said, that knowledge is not important, imagination is important. Knowledge is limited, but imagination is unlimited. So I think imagine, like the people who success in multi-millionaires who have succeeded in business. I think imagination, imagine that you are changing, like the people in South Africa imagine. I think that change is the need of the hour today.
Periyannan Pillai Devaraj was born on the 21st of February 1929. He is a respected Sri Lankan politician and former Minister of State. An alumni of St. Sylvester's College, Kandy, Devaraj was a director of the Congress Labour Foundation. He was later Vice President of the Ceylon Workers' Congress.
Today is Madin Full Moon Poe Day.
Almost all the temples in the country had organized a number of SIL programs to celebrate Madin Full Poon Poya Day. This Poya Day is significant for Buddhists all over the globe. On a day like this, Prince Siddhartha Gautama, after leaving the royal palace, visited the city of Kimbulwatpura for the first time following his enlightenment. The religious observances were carried out at the Shakya Malike opposite the head office of the Capital Maharaja organization today. Today's religious proceedings were organized by the officials of Kevilton Private Limited. Group Director Anil De Silva and several other officials attended the religious observances. Meanwhile, devotees were granted the opportunity to worship and obtain blessings from the sacred relics brought to the Tisamaharama Manik Rajamahaviharya from the Nelligala International Buddhist Center. This has been organized in line with the Tripitaka Abhivandana Week. Deputy Leader of the UNP, Minister of Housing, Construction and Cultural Affairs, Minister Sajit Premadasa attended the event. Foundation stone for the Chaitya of the Tisamaharama Kavantisa Dhammavijaya Temple was laid today. The event was held under the auspices of the leader of the Janaseta Peramuna, Venerable Battaramulle Seelaratana Thera.
And that's a look at tonight's primetime news. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Shahin Jurangpati.
And I'm Dasniya Pada. Good night.